Now I can excuse racism, but I draw a line at animal cruelty. Like that's the tea that gives. Like, bro, what? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Freedom Collective podcast, y'all. Thank you so much for being a part of this collective. I am so just like excited with the direction of this podcast and like the many wonderful conversations we've been able to have. Again, it's been going really great. If you could, please leave a review. If it's less than 5 stars, hesitate and then leave 5 stars and then come back and review again. But thank you again for being a part of this collective, y'all. It's been amazing. And today I have a very, very wonderful guest that I'm super excited about. Donyae, please introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you so much. My name is Donyae Asante. I use any pronouns with respect. He, she, they is great with me. I am a multidisciplinary artist that has now transitioned to be a clinical art therapist. So I am a therapist in training. When I'm not doing art, when I'm not doing clinical work, I am a foodie. She's a travel connoisseur. I'm a Sag rising, so I love to be outside on that plane.
Love, my fellow.
She's an astrologer. She's a witchy girl. She is multifaceted, and I'm very excited to be in this conversation today.
And I'm excited to be in this conversation with you. Thank you for being here. Like, what's your sun and moon since we already here?
What is it giving like off first impression? I feel like the physical aesthetic you should be able to maybe guess a moon sign.
Libra.
Libra moon,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, because I'll get like the Libra energy is just oozing off of you, by the way. I'm like, there's a Libra in here somewhere. I love a Libra down. Okay. What's your sun sign?
Okay, I'll give you like three guess, like it'll be like charades. So like she loves creativity, right?
Okay.
Sensitive soul. Uh
Pisces. That was also like kind of, I was picking up on that too. I'm like, and I love a Pisces. I'm a Pisces moon, so I love a Pisces down.
and you're
Okay.
a Taurus sun, right? Yeah, when I say Pisces and Taurus go together real bad, like it's the earth that, like the
Hmm.
water that sprouts the earth of Taurus. When I say Taurus be in the
Absolutely
tribe, I love a Taurus down.
down. Okay. Seal in the basement. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with our intake question. And per usual, if you're in the collective and you're watching this or listening to it, please feel free to answer in a comment. But the today's intake question is because since we're through Q1 of 2026, I want to know what is your biggest highlight this year so far?
Hmm. I Many things, which is crazy that it's been chaotic and there's like wins within the chaos. I started doing stand up for the very first time this year, and I got to meet other clinicians that are also like I met another social worker at the open mic that I performed at, and we've like been locked in ever since of like using comedy to not only like as a way for us to heal and process being clinicians in this field and like using comedy to kind of help us heal, but also like how comedy can be like a good gateway to having uncomfortable conversations and like using like the stand up shows to like go there. And so that's been really nice. I never thought in a million years. I've been a theater kid my whole entire life, but like doing your own jokes and like just being up there by yourself. And so it was like a bucket list check off. I did it. And I love humor. I think humor is one of the ways that we're going to get through 2026 and get through the rest of
Yes.
our lives. And so bringing whimsy back.
You
So yeah.
know, I love that so much. And it's mostly because it just really highlights that every social worker I know, like, people are always confused by us and how we wear like a million and three different hats. But like, I have not met a single social worker that isn't dynamic in some sense. Like, of
Mhm.
course you're doing stand up. You're a social worker. Like, why not? Like, I really love that. And if you have a show, you gotta invite me out. I would love to come see you perform some stand up. And I love a good comedy show. Down.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think you would eat that. Like you are so funny, and I think like how you
Yeah.
like are able to bring humor, but also like give people psychoeducation. It's like I think it also makes for. I think like I'm learning so much of how to like bring comedy and levity into like the trauma therapy space as people are navigating heavy things, and like how we can
Yeah.
make that kind of this can still be a relationship where, like, we can laugh in session after, like, saying, like, a really intense story, you know?
Exactly. You get it. I don't know if I have the comedy chops to perform it, but I definitely, there I do think incorporating that into the space, and we're gonna get more into like how you incorporate, like how your journey to come to this position. I want to hear more about that. But
Mhm.
as far as my biggest highlight of the year, I told you I just moved into a new spot. So I do this thing every year where I like make a vision board,
Mm,
and usually it's digital, but this time I was like, I'm actually gonna like go the extra mile. I'm gonna print out my vision board. I actually threw it on some canvas and I did a whole vision board. And I ain't gonna say jokingly, but like I haphazardly put moving on my vision board. My
okay.
lease was not up until August, technically. I had no idea where I was gonna move, how I was gonna wind up doing it. And lo and behold, like the power of manifestation, I manifested a little close to the sun because I got pretty much everything I wanted out of my new space. And I've just been moving. It's been time consuming, it's been energy consuming, but it's been great because I moved. So that's my biggest highlight so far in this Q1, along with some other pretty cool things that I've done. But that's mine. Collective, drop yours below if you're listening to this. I want to hear like what you've done. But yeah, that's the first segment intake. And now we're gonna go to our segment two where I want to hear a little bit more about your story. Donyae, I'm so curious. What led you to becoming a therapist?
I think we have to start, like, with my childhood. So I grew up in a very Christian conservative household. Um, I grew up in the Midwest, and so I think that, like, that context too of just being, like, very queer, very knowingly, like, queer from every like, from my voice to the way that I dress. It was very known at a very early age, but I was very othered at a very early age. And then navigating I'm blind out of one of my eyes, so I have glaucoma, so I was diagnosed with that at a very young age. And so it was navigating, like, really just heavy weight and having to, like, grow up very early allowed me to, like, have this motivation, like, mental health being, like, my North Star from a very early age. I wound up going to school to be a journalist, actually, so I got my bachelor's in journalism, and that was due to just, like, wanting to have be a storyteller my whole life and finding
Mm,
value in other people's stories and highlighting that in a city in Chicago where people watch the news and get a horrible representation of such a beautiful city. I wanted to kind of be the queer person on the streets getting people's stories. And then, but I've always been an artist. So when I graduated college in journalism, it was 2016, 2017 and I graduated like 2018. So, but I finished my program in 2017. It wasn't really a fun time to be a journalist, as we
mm,
know.
yeah.
Independent journalism wasn't a thing for like wasn't really like there wasn't a lot of safety. And I think as a black and brown person at a PWI, there was always kind of like having to navigate like my career on my own. And so I really dove into artistry when I graduated college. And I think that I was putting out music, I was doing musical theater in New Orleans, and I recognized how much also we see the what's happening on like with Nickelodeon and America's Next Top Model and all these things that are coming out with the entertainment industry and knowing that there should be clinicians on these sets. There should be clinicians working with these production companies. I did musical theater my whole entire life and the things that have happened in musicals with regards to mental health. I think just actors need to be supported, especially when they're playing very traumatic roles. I think I've played roles on stage where it's a lot for an actor to process, and then there's not mental health people on these sets. And fast forward 2023, I don't like to be a starving artist because I don't like to starve. So I said I'm going to go back to school to be an art therapist. And it's been a beautiful journey in navigating. Like I feel like I've always used art to alchemize the broken parts of my soul. And so now to allow other clients do that and find passion within that, it's been a beautiful journey. And I think it's a full circle of like the 5-year-old kid that was getting bullied and processing religious trauma. He can now use that to help people find their way and their light through art. So
Mm,
it's been a journey navigating
yeah.
career and identity at the same time, but I think that that's also why clinicians are needed.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit before we started recording about the concept of being a disruptor. And you
Mhm,
mentioned being a disruptor and how that's helped you through your journey through grad school. And then, like, now your your beginning phase of being an art therapist. I'm so curious. Can you tell the people what is a disruptor and how you utilize the skill of being a disruptor in these spaces?
mhm. It's interesting. I think that when I think of disruption, especially in the clinical mental health space in 2026, it's about saying the uncomfortable thing that needs to be said, calling out the elephant in the room, having dialogue about systems and how individuals are not broken. The society that they're living in is broken. And the way that they've coped through a broken society is how we as clinicians walk them through that. And so, but a lot of times, disruptors like myself, I feel like during my PWI experience, and it was happening within journalism first. I think I recognized it
Yeah.
first, even before I was a clinician. I worked for my college newspaper. And I remember back in 2016 when everything was happening with the Muslim ban and whatnot, I wrote a profile piece on a Palestinian student that I was doing actually theater classes with. And so it was just a profile piece. The faculty, who was a Jewish professor on campus,
Goodness.
thought that I didn't have the other side of the story in the college newspaper profile piece. That wasn't in the news section, it wasn't in the international news section. It was quite literally a profile, and they weren't gonna run the story. Mind you, prior to that time in the journalism department, I was so valued. I because I was valued because I was silent on things. And
Uh,
I think that the minute that I started speaking up and advocating for other students, it became this flip and blackballed of different experiences on campus. And I recognized that in undergrad, and the same thing happens now in the clinical space where I'm in classes in our internship year and nobody wants to have uncomfortable conversations on the world. We just want to do CBT worksheets and color and
goodness.
talk about we took AP Psych and that's why we want to be therapists. And I
Goodness
think
gracious.
I'm someone that's going to shake the table in class. And I think that what I've recognized too, it puts a target on your back. It takes away experiences that other peers will get. It can be a very lonely experience being a disruptor in this field. I think a lot of white women work in behavioral health, and so
Yes.
you can be this disruptor and then be like shunned and isolated in your workspace. And so I think you have to have like a strong tribe. I think tribe when just you're in your corner in your interpersonal life, but like even following clinicians like yourself and seeing the people that are doing work worldwide, knowing that there are other disruptors, even though they're not the disruptors in your classrooms and in your respective communities. And so it's a doozy. I think
Yeah.
today I'm more grounded and my nervous system is regulated being a disruptor, but there are other times where I hate sometimes what it means to be kind of that in spaces and I wish people spoke up more.
Yeah, oh my goodness. You just said it all, truly. Being a disruptor can be very isolating at times because people truly do not want to be uncomfortable. And I think a lot of people underestimate how valuable comfort is to people and how far people are willing to go to get it. And I'm glad you mentioned Palestine because I think that's like the perfect litmus test for how willing someone is to be uncomfortable in the name of what's right, right?
Mhm.
Or wrong. And because to look at the situation in Palestine and not be able to see that Israel is like clearly, and look, this is the fact that this is even controversial to say says a lot. Like, but the
Yeah.
fact that Israel even believes it has the right to exist, which it does not. Like, what is the right to existence? I don't think anybody, but whatever. Like, a country does not have that. But the fact that people can like watch the pot boil, simmer so long that it turned into this really big boil that it is now, like full out genocide, and people are confused as to how we gotten here, and it's because people like choose silence over like speaking up and saying something of substance when it comes to what these people are being subject to as a direct result of Israel. And no shade, but what the fuck do you mean? the other side of the story. What other side is
Crazy,
there?
crazy.
Y'all are like
Yeah.
y'all are like genocidal lunatics. There is no other side. That is the side. You are in the wrong. And yeah, just like I understand that plight though, because
Mhm,
as I'm sure you've heard, like when I was going through grad school, I also was like the one who everybody was like kind of rolling their eyes at or like kind of scared to talk to and about because I was always willing to highlight like the institutional like and systemic issues in the room. And people kind of hated me for it at some point, which
yes.
is and it can be very disruptive. And I don't think we talk enough about how those things can be dysregulating to like the person who's brave enough to speak nervous system because in many ways we don't go into these environments wishing to be like the pariah or wishing to be like this like leader political leader. A lot of us just really want, and I know this was my experience, but
Mhm,
just for a little bit of context, I've told this story a lot of times, but like when I was in grad school getting my master's in social work, I went through a tremendous amount of racism and I always highlighted it, like, and it got to a boiling point when a student sent me an email saying they didn't want a black presence in the classroom while they were presenting. And I kept going to the administration. They weren't doing anything. So I took matters into my own hand and posted it on the internet, went viral,
mhm.
became a huge thing at the school, lots of back and forth between me and the school the school admins. And all of that to say, like, it is incredibly isolating because I never went to school hoping to be like the Malcolm X of NYU. Like that was
Mhm.
not my aim at all. My aim was to go get my master's and go on about my life. Like,
Yes.
and
And
it
my
kind of makes
business.
right. But when you're someone who's willing to like disrupt these spaces that are rooted in all of these systemic, like spin a wheel, pick one, throw a dart, like
Yes.
ableism, like sexism, transphobia, anti-blackness, like the whole gambit. Like when you're willing to call it out in the room, like you you kind of like are forced into the position of right, like the person who has to advocate. And that's why I think people are uncomfortable too. It's because a lot of people know that once you accept that there is something wrong happening, you can't just silently sit in something wrong happening. You have to act. And
Mhm.
I think that's why people go so far to squash that. I'm so happy that you still like have your voice though and you didn't let that like deter you. That's a number one thing that I love when my fellow disruptors don't let the backlash like stop them from speaking up and out. How did you manage to build community through that? I'm so curious.
Ooh-wee. Once again, I feel like you're catching me, like, on a it's because I'm on vacation, right? It's because I'm in New York, and I'm taking the PTO, and I'm taking the days off to rest and center in recognizing that my rest is also a part of the radical journey. We have to find ways to unplug and disconnect at times when this work is happening. But it's interesting that you mentioned your story because it relates so much into this present moment that I am experiencing. So one,
Mm,
shout out to the other clinicians and professors that hold space when students are facing so much systemic issues within the college campus. Because I've also experienced the racism, the homophobia, the transphobia, and then the like kind of the gaslighting. I think my institution was very so much a prided themselves on Vincentian values and prided themselves on we're a social justice kind of school. And so the gaslighting of like when you're how dare you advocate for yourself? We're giving you all so much as students. I think that that's what my university presented as. And context, we have to have a 80% or above to move on in our internship program. And so I was given a 78% on a for my internship 1 year, but I'll tell you why I was given a 78%. I had an A in the class the whole entire time. I'm done with my program, right? So I think context, I started in school counseling
mm,
and switched to clinical mental health. So I started in school counseling back in 2018. So I took most of my classes up until this point. So I just had my internship year. We had an assignment. And I think you can relate to this because you're a holistic healer is what I kind of look at you as, and that's why I'm inspired by
thank
your work
you.
because you looked at talk therapy, especially when we're talking about marginalized identities. they need holistic care because a lot of the research and the practices that have been done haven't included us in that. And so we're bringing in a variety of things into sessions, whether it's art therapy, movement, somatic work, you name it, because our clients need that. I had started an astrology support group at my center based off of my clients really wanting to talk about that. We did an art therapy group and it went really well. And my clients really wanted that. And so I was like, great, we'll do narrative therapy using it from an astrology lens. And we'll talk about the major transits and reframe our narratives. My program said that I was being unethical by bringing astrology into the therapy space because it's not evidence
What?
based.
Okay.
And mind you, Catholic university, very religious professors, very different microaggressive
Did you
things that
say I'm
happen.
sorry, hold on. Quick, just did you say that you were treating clients with astrology or did you start a support group?
I started a support group with narrative therapy that was like that mind you, had to go through other people at that clinic, right? Like, so it had to get approved. It wouldn't have ran, a
Yeah.
co facilitator wouldn't have signed up. It wouldn't have ran if it was something that anybody at my site thought was not going to be effective for clients.
Yeah.
And it was one of
Clients
those
want that,
things where
by
it
the
was like
way.
they hate a CBT worksheet, right? They hate a thing where it's like we're not looking at them wholly and holding space for their interest and what they're passionate about and talking about. And I also know that my university plays different games with, once again, it wasn't ever about that article back in journalism, right? It was about that Palestinian students weren't treated on great on campus in general. Palestinian professors and students weren't treated. Same with this assignment. It had nothing to do with evidence-based practices. Also, I think evidence-based practices need to be unpacked because
Yes.
when we're talking about evidence-based things, a lot of the people that were included in those sample populations and research weren't black and brown people.
Yes. Exactly. That's even pause there because evidence-based, who is funding it? Why is this like this evidence getting funded more than other ones? Who is the beneficiary of this? Who's the subject of these studies? Why? And who is excluded is the main question that needs to be underscored. A lot of the times, the evidence based stuff is rooted in the same systemic issues that we have. Like therapy is no exception to that. These institutions that teach therapy, like certified therapists, that licensed therapists, they're no different or no exception to the rules that exist outside of the confines of this field. So, yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. Please continue.
Well, and I think it's important to note because I think it's also like we'll be in this field and we'll talk about like a Sigmund Freud, right? Which is still crazy that we like will go up for people
Right.
like a Sigmund and all of these white men and all of these studies and research that have not been, and we know how sample populations have been treated within these studies. So even when we're like taking a critical lens of the evidence that's out there and the research that's out there, we're still reading The Body Keeps the Score when my grandmother's hands exist. Like, right? Like
Right.
there are
Okay. Wake
things
that up.
we we're not talking about bell hooks in the clinical space, but so much of her work matters in regards to bringing love and faith in back into this world and leading by a love ethic. But bell hooks is not going to be in that evidence based stuff. Even art therapy, right? Like
Mhm.
I remember feeling woo woo earlier in the program of like, there's not a lot of stuff out there on art therapy. That does not mean that art therapy is not effective. And so it's like, I think that situation with my program, especially when other professors were advocating on my behalf, it did feel nice, but it also, I think what I'm recognizing is that you have to have a strong willpower and trust in yourself. I think when you're a disruptor, I think a lot of what grad school feels sometimes often like is that like it leads you farther and farther away from trusting your own intuition and your own
Mhm.
inner knowing. And so I think having practices in place, whether that's being in my own therapy, which a lot of people in these programs are not in their own therapy,
It
which
needs to
is
be
also
get them
insane.
in there immediately. Get on that lady couch. If you're listening to this and you're a baby therapist, get on that lady couch immediately. Okay.
Immediately. And I also think like making sure like also like kind of like that I think like I'm finding the balance of like not being such like this like tough parent as I guide myself because I feel like when I became a clinician, it became like this thing of like my healing journey needs to be this rigid. ness, and I think I'm giving space to know that I was on my healing journey before I became a clinician, and I will continue to be on my healing journey as I now hold space for other people's. But I think that that's what's important is like making sure that like all of the stuff that because it's triggering, like you said, it can be very. I think when you're facing oppression within grad school or being a clinician, being the only black and brown clinician on your field or in your site or in your classrooms, it can
Yeah.
feel as much as triggering of what just being in this country feels. And so you have to make sure that you're doing the work on yourself when you are triggered within working in this space.
Yeah, I learned in grad school very quickly what being a disruptor is. So just so the audience can know what I've been taught. Like when I went through my racist experience in grad school, I was taught like, your presence in this classroom alone is disruptive to a lot of these people's worldview. I was the only black male clinician in the entire cohort, like in the entire school at the time. So people were looking at me like I had three heads. I'm the only person representing my demographic. People are just not used to seeing people like me in those spaces. And as a direct result of that, people often question whether or not I was intelligent enough to be there. They question like
Mhm.
whether or not I had the right to take up space, to think, to speak. And they question like everything I said pretty much. Like there was this one instance that I talked about before where all of my classmates, I'm the only black person in this class. We're all like shouting out facts that we learned at the time about Trump, because this is when Trump had the kids in the cages. That man is loony. Okay. My
Looney,
God.
Looney Tune.
But he had the kids in the cages, and I was like, yeah, like they're actually also forcing a lot of these kids into the foster care system, and this is like human trafficking. And my professor is like, "Whoa, you need to cite your source. You need to check your sources. Like, make sure you're checking legitimate sources because you can't trust everything you read. There's a lot of
Right.
misinformation going around." My classmates are like, "Yeah, like that doesn't sound right. Like, nah, I don't think that's true." I had to pull up a CNN article in the middle of class. Mind you, nobody else has been questioned at this point. I had to pull out a CNN article, like, what the fuck? Like, clearly this is true, and I'm in this program with higher grades than all of y'all. Y'all wouldn't even know
Clock it.
that. But like, I'm in this program because I'm intelligent enough to know that I
Yes.
have to like vet my sources before I just listen to anything. Like, what the fuck? But then the professor, even after the class, because I confronted him naturally. I'm a disruptor for real, y'all. Because one thing I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna be the quiet wheel. I'm the squeaky one. I will get the oil. I'm like, yeah, that was fucked up. I'm the only black person in this class and the only one you question. And he was like, yeah, maybe that was racist. And it's just like, okay, that was
It was the
enough to be
admittance for me.
scared
So
of
you
that.
admitted it. So you observed that this is also crazy. Okay.
Yeah. But being a disruptor is like coming into a space where there's already a culture set into place, system set into place, and being someone who's willing to challenge it, willing to call out the issues within the system. And this can happen on interpersonal levels. This can happen on the meso level, like in your immediate community. This can happen on macro levels, like by challenging institutions and systems as they exist in the world as a whole. All of that to say, being a disruptor can be very challenging and isolating. And I know, like, that in different areas of your life, when you find yourself being subject to like the backlash of calling out BS when you see BS because you want the world to be a better place, it can be isolating. Donyae, I'm curious though,
Mhm.
right? Because you mentioned religion in this, like in your journey too, like unpacking religious trauma. I just know something in my bones is telling me you had to be a disruptor in the realm of unpacking religious trauma. Do you mind talking about that a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like you know the spiritual bypassing that people do
Oh,
often. And I think it hits close to home for myself because I think like from a very young age, like I heard the conversation of that's not anxiety, baby. That's just, the devil's work. We're gonna go to church on Sunday and we're gonna get your life
Lord.
together. And that was how also healing in my family kind of was like processed. Like I don't think there was really psychoeducation or understanding of even how to regulate my own nervous system besides prayer, besides gospel music. And what I will say, I think that like at first for me, because I think like it was easy for me to just like I think at the beginnings of becoming an artist, I did love gospel music for what it made me feel like and what it did to me as a performer. But I think like even when we're talking about, I think that like I had alcoholism in my family, and never were we talking about AA meetings. We were talking about Bible study, you know? And
Goodness.
so I think when I became a clinician, I already had that prior knowledge of what that looks like. And then I think when we're talking about this country and what we're experiencing, white evangelistic Christian mindset and ideologies have gotten us to where we've gotten to.
Name it.
And so and then it's interesting to be at a university that very much so does the thoughts and prayers vibes when quite literally systemic violence is happening in our society, and they'll send like a mass email on things that doesn't actually address what is going on. And I think it's what I always and I remember saying this, you and me are the same in the sense I'm going to clock the professor to your face. Everyone else is going to like be silent when you walk in the room, and I'm going to say that this does not make sense.
Exactly, as you should.
During my individual supervision, I remember because like, in the program, you're, like, getting supervised by, like, your professor and then, like, your site, and so when I was having my meeting, my professor made a comment of, like, well, like, what's, like, like, you're constantly speaking up on things in class," and she was like, "I don't I wanna kinda give you some context as to, like, I don't, like, sometimes say anything because I don't wanna make other students uncomfortable." And I said, "The other white students? Because 'Cause I'm, like, the only, like, black the person
Okay.
it's only 3 other black people in this class, and so the majority of the people in this class are white. So you're saying you don't wanna make the white students uncomfortable? And if we're going back to evidence-based, I'm just taking things from books that I've read, in class, and also my
Clock
clients are
it.
talking about the world, right? So it's like when I'm disrupting and talking about white evangelistic Christian ideologies, that's also because my clients who have religious trauma, because they've also gone to Catholic universities or Christian colleges or different things where they're now unpacking the harm that those
Yeah.
systems have done to them in sessions with myself. I'm only and I think that that's what allows me to kind of still disrupt and not feel like, despite what a university will do of making you feel unintelligent or gaslighting you, I know that my North Star are my clients. When I was an educator, my North Star was my students. If I'm making these decisions based off of my clients and my students, I'm never doing anything wrong.
Yep.
And I always keep that in the back of my mind when I'm vocal and when I'm getting pushed back on being vocal. I also like had just this is separate from the religious trauma, but I just have to like I think I'm spilling all my PWIT on the podcast today because it
By
needs
all means.
and I'm also done with this program. So now like it's like the tea needs to be spilled. It was so weird when we started, like, practicum internship, like, this was, like the first week of the internship, where the professor was like, "I can have a client" basically saying, like, "I can have, like, a client of a different political, like, stance, and it doesn't like, I, as a clinician, know that I should have the tools to, like, not bring that biasy into the therapy space." Racism? Can I just
Now, I can excuse racism, but I draw a line at animal cruelty. Like, that's the tea that gives. Like, bro, what?
And I think that that's the problem in this space is that, like, we're saying that we have to be Switzerland and, like, unbiased clinicians when we're
Absolutely
talking
not.
about swallowing harm. Like, giving grace is not we're swallowing harm. That's what we're doing. We're being silent. Don't say that. And I think that that is confused in this space where also we're gaslight clinicians like me and yourself who are like, I'm not being biased. I just don't condone racism in my office. I don't condone homophobia. I don't condone transphobia. I don't condone genocide. So if you think that I'm being biased as a clinician, to each their own. But I just think it's interesting. And I think there's so many words and things that are used against us to gaslight and make people feel like
Mhm.
they're unintelligent for bringing up what is happening quite literally in it right now, why we are at war right now. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Like that goes back to what not talk about this ad nauseum, but like that self-protective mechanism that white supremacy has to like make people question their own like orientation with reality just because like it's not appropriate. It makes like even the emphasis your professor made on like making other students feel uncomfortable. So fucking what? Who
So
cares?
being a clinician is uncomfortable. Like, you have
Right.
to, like, I was like, you that's what we're taught. You're supposed to hold space for that in general. I would
Yeah.
hope that they're doing that's the thing that confuses me. I'm like, I'm just maybe some white clinicians don't have black and brown clients, because all of my clients are talking about this every single day. So, it's not
Like, how
any
can you not at this point? Like, this is the reality, like, that we are all living in, but just beyond that, I'll keep it a being with you. I think we need to take Christianity and any other organized religion, I don't really give a fuck which one it is, we need to take it and completely remove it from the public sector. It should have nothing to do with anything that involves other people. That is something you should practice in private. Stop superimposing that shit on everybody else. It is very exhausting, especially the evangelical Christians, Christianity just in general. Like, and I will never have any problem with anybody practicing any belief that they have, so long as they keep that shit to themselves. Keep it to yourselves. Why is
keep
that
it to
so
yourself.
hard? Why is that so hard? I think my biggest qualm with like people who think that because basically Christianity in its modern context is just white supremacy. They don't worship no goddamn Jesus. They worship white supremacy. They don't know that, like maybe not consciously, but that's exactly what they do, which is why like a lot of like the evangelicals that now I'm getting political. Sorry about that. Actually, no, I'm not
We
sorry.
should.
Right. But that's why they can support like the very things that go against the entire Christian story, right? Like the story of Jesus Christ. Like every political decision that's been made in this country over the past few decades is completely in misalignment with the story of Jesus Christ. Like condemning your neighbors, like trying to like literally deport people, not having hospitality towards people who are from different places, racism, the
You
whole
name it,
nine.
yeah.
Jesus hung with the whores. What you mean to tell me you think that you are in alignment with Jesus and the way that you it's just all of it is sick. I think Christianity, any other religion needs to get out of the public sector, like period. And I think like the unwillingness to be uncomfortable, the way that they've been able to gain so much power in this context is because of like the very thing that you're talking about, right? That worshiping of white supremacy, which comes with the white supremacy culture, which is a self-protective mechanism in and of itself. The gaslighting people who are like, hey, who gives a fuck if you're uncomfortable? You are not the queen of the fucking universe. The sun does
Right.
not rise out your mouth and set in your ass cheeks. You're going to be uncomfortable sometimes. You have to share space with other people. If you don't want to learn other people's worldviews, if you don't want to disrupt and challenge things that are negative, that are harming other people, then you probably need to get off the fucking field. Get
Get off
back on
the
the
mic.
court. Get on full. Oh, get out of here. We don't need you. But this is why I'm also like a really huge advocate for decolonizing therapy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that book, but
Yes.
that's a good book. Like, we need to take back, not even take back, because this whole field has kind of been built around like the imagination of creepy white men. Shouts out to Freud. And I think it's important. That's why it's important for people like disruptors, like you, like me, to actually challenge like the space, even if it feels isolating and even
Mhm.
beyond just like the mental health field, just any field in general. If you're listening to this and you identify as a disruptor, you're not afraid to call out bullshit when you see bullshit, even if it's down to your family system and you notice unhealthy, toxic patterns within a family dynamic, floor that shit, okay? I'm not
Swing.
gonna look. Floor it. Put the pedal to the goddamn floor and floor it. Take it to hell if you need to, like reason, because we don't want people to be unsafe. But like
Yes.
within reason, like you should continue to disrupt. But I just said a whole lot. But yeah, I'm tired.
And can I add something? I think you bring up this beautiful aspect too. I think like a lot of times when we're even talking about like positions of power and like abuse of power, like we see it on a global scale, right? With like these political leaders, but you can stand up to abuse in power in multiple ways in life. And I think whether it's at your Thanksgiving table and shaking it up and saying like, actually, no, like I don't like, I'm not going to respect elders that don't respect me back. Right.
Exactly. And your mashed potatoes is dry, Auntie Mary.
I
And you
don't
can go
like
to
sea
hell.
there was no seasoning in this food because there's no seasoning in your
Exactly.
soul.
Exactly. And your husband a little gay. Period. Shake it off. If you gonna take it to hell, take it to hell.
take
Sorry,
it
continue.
down, and I think it can happen in family spaces, it can happen in these classrooms, it can happen to bosses. I think people, like, and that's especially when we're talking about, like, grad school, I think there's, like, this assumption, like, my teacher must know everything because she got her degree in everything, and, like, no, like, there are people with licenses and
Yes,
that are doing harm. There are people that are professors that are leading things that are doing harm. And I think that just because someone is automatically in a position of power, which is still kind of crazy too, because that's what people are still saying with police and ICE agents, like they're just here to protect us. People in
child.
power are abusive and violent, and abuse and violence can happen in so many ways. And I think the way that you confront these boss battles is by doing it in your respective communities. It might seem far
Period.
away to on a senator. It might seem far away to confront Cheeto Puff, but I would love if somebody can get on that really quickly. Like, I don't know who I need to tell. Like you said, I don't know who I need to tell, but we
Somebody
really
should
had
do
that
it.
together back in history, the pew pew pew. So I'm just but I would talk about Pew Research when I say pew pew pew. But I think that, like, because I think people need to recognize too, like, it's like you can confront, like, positions in power in so many different ways, and I think when we're talking about disruption, it just means, like, knowing that, like, just because these people have these positions of power, don't forget your power
Exactly.
as a human being, and so
Exactly.
yeah.
And even tying back in that religion portion, let me tell you something. A lot of these people walk around like God left them in charge. Who are you?
Who are you?
God did not leave you in charge. If you don't get your ass to the and like a lot of the times we've been conditioned to really buy into that bullshit too, like believing in power and like people with authority. And a lot of people, as a result, are like directly afraid to challenge authority. But I promise you, if you start to really think of it through the lens of like God did not leave you in charge, whether you believe in God or not, like if you do believe in God, who the fuck you're not talking to that person entity, whatever the fuck you want to say, you're not talking to them directly. Who left you in charge? And I don't know, y'all. Just please challenge. Thank you, Donye, for that because it's like so important for us to challenge power as we see it and not just like give unlimited authority to people in charge. I had another instance in school where, like, I had a fellow classmate when I was trying to challenge my professor who was really on board. Like, shouts out to him. But, like, I was
Mhm.
trying to challenge my professor to, like, strengthen the syllabus because I'm like, it's a lot of white social workers in here who clearly have said a lot of racist things. We need to do a little bit better than this midterm because this is not going to cut it. And one of my
Mhm,
professors was
mhm.
like, how dare you question this professor? And my professor is like, no, that's actually a great idea. But like, y'all sipping the Kool Aid of the authority Kool Aid so much that y'all don't even realize that that prevents society from moving forward. If you want a better society, if you want a better life for the people who will come after us, challenge the systems that exist as they are. But remember, you got to be able to pick up on the signs because there are signs that it is a self-protective mechanism that they're trying to enact on you too, because they will gaslight you. My God, will they gaslight you into thinking you're the problem?
Respectability politics will have people in a chokehold, until they die, and I think
Oh,
respectability politics is only just another word for the pipeline to continuing generational trauma. Like, I was like,
period,
respectability politics is not what our ancestors wanted for us or indigenous folks wanted for us, like,
period.
respectability politics was the whole invention of it was to keep people uncomfortable that should have never been comfortable in the first place. And
Exactly.
so but I think, like, that combined with how religious trauma, specifically like within our community that you like that you've spoken up on before, like it just keeps people stuck in loops in their lives that I think that like that's my whole thing is trying to I think like if we take the bare bones of what we do as clinicians, but even like as artists too, is just like allowing people to kind of like not live in this bubble and like get
Yep,
out of these loops. I think everyone loved Wicked so much, but like still loves to live in the bubble of what Glinda
exactly.
was.
Some people did not
So,
get the message. Oh my
what
God.
goes over people's head each and every time.
Yeah. And I think we can also disrupt in the little ways. Like we
Mhm.
have to find the small ways to disrupt. If you're listening to this and not watching it, Donye has on a very beautiful sparkly top. And Donye came into the session like, oh, can I roll this? It's like, what? Yes, roll those sparkly top. What? Put that top on. I'm wearing a do rag. I intentionally do that too because it's like why the fuck can't I be black in this space? I can be black wherever I want to be. And
Mhm,
wear the pink hair, wear
mhm,
like the sparkly nails, be the comedian, be like the creative. I've had so many people, and Daria, this is another reason why I just love what you're doing. I've had so many people try to put me in a box as a clinician and tell me like, you can't be a clinician and talk about politics. You can't be a clinician and be on social media. You can't be, and it's like, no, I'm not gonna allow anybody to like box my humanity in because of a job or a
mhm,
field of study or anything like that. And I think the small ways that we can disrupt is just by being ourselves, being authentic and true to ourselves in systems that try to strip us of our humanity. That is
mhm,
the smallest thing that you can do. If you're listening to this, wear the bright color to work. You don't have to like dress in black and white all the goddamn time unless you that's your vibe. Like again, if that's
mhm.
authentic to yourself, let it be yourself. But like be yourself. Like don't be afraid to like just bring you into the work that you do. And I'm so glad you even mentioned that earlier about how there's like an active like attempt to strip us away from other forms of work that really challenge and like lean into authenticity, like my grandmother's hands, for example. It is so important that we just show up and be ourselves in these spaces. Oh, my goodness.
I feel like every time you say something, it brings up I feel like, the emotional flashbacks of it all, I'm having throughout this entire conversation. When you had talked about nails, I used to, like now we're doing our natural nail season, and so that it saves the coin instead of going to the shop all the damn time. I'm an acrylic nailies girly, but I also think there's a reason why I'm like, I think fashion can be such disruptive, like you said, like in a world where we don't have sex education, we don't have this, we have so much censorship, right, in our society at large. And so being able to express myself in my adulthood after years of being a church boy and having the shirt tucked in, ironed look, and still had to fight for my life and jump through series of oppression. Like the iron pants did not give me any more rights.
Right.
And so now that I do that, it still shows up once again with regards to professionalism. And I think professionalism, people need to
Sure.
unpack of professional to who, professional to where, because I think I remember interviewing, this was when I was in grad school for education, but during my interview for schools, I had acrylic nails and like I forget one of the faculty members had like said like one of the principals were like didn't want to hire me because the acrylic nails were unprofessional. And I was like, did they say that to
Really.
the same femme folks that like or cis femme individuals that were coming with their sets? Because I my length was the same as any cis woman would also wear, right? And so professional to who and always being able to question that because I think that like it's uncomfortable when people are saying that about you and then
Hmm.
also knowing that you have the tools and the power to advocate for yourself and saying a do-rag, a pink, anything is not
Right.
unprofessional. I'm still able to work with my clients. So,
You know,
yeah.
and that's so funny because I remember this one job I had, and I had a black supervisor, and it's no shade, but if it is shade, catch it. But this man asked me, like, because I wear head wraps, because I'm a spiritual girly too. Like, I protect the crown, I wear head wraps, I wear durags and stuff, and headscarves. I will come into work with headscarves and I will come into work with do-rags. And he was like, do you think wearing do-rags is going to actually limit your ability to grow professionally? One, don't ever question my ability to grow because I'll do that in no matter what I'm wearing, whatever I got on. Like that's gonna happen. Whatever gonna happen is gonna happen because I will it to be so. But I'm like,
Yes.
why? I'm like, do you have the same energy when I'm wearing a headscarf? He's like, no, it's different when it's a headscarf versus a do-rag. And I'm like, why? What's the difference? Is it because one is associated like more closely with black people than the other thing? Because to me, it's all fabric on my head. So what are you talking about? And
Mhm,
I obviously quit that job because I did not enjoy that. I'm not gonna have anybody questioning my ability to maneuver through the world because I look black. Like that's just not
mhm,
to me. It's like the whole idea of professionalism, like what we wear, how we show up. Like it's so important that we disrupt that. And many other things, like just disrupting shit. I'm always the type of person who's gonna be like, Yeah, I don't actually fuck with that. And I don't think we should like remove that from how we practice either because we are people. We are people working with people. Of course, there are limitations to how we can engage. There's power dynamics at play in the therapeutic
Mhm.
relationship, but those power dynamics do not require for you to like become a robot or somebody who's stripped of humanity because that is how we get closer to therapists being police officers who are also trying to police other people's expression and how they maneuver the world. That is how we get the white clinicians who don't understand like people being expressive. Oh my god, I saw a video on I saw a TikTok and the girl was
Uh,
saying like she had it was some black expression. It's like you because you know black people like God, we always got expressions that are like I forget what the
you can
expression
see
was.
it on our face. You can't hide it, right? Is that what you want to say? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
no. It was like it was a phrase, and it was like the clinician had like misread the phrase as the client being suicidal, when it was just like something that
Mhm,
black people say. And it's like
mhm.
we get to those places when we are so invested in policing the way other people show up. And the only way for us to like allow people to authentically be themselves and to take and learn from other people's experiences, because there will always be people who have different walks of life outside of ourselves. The only way we can do that is by being authentic ourselves. So if you're like refusing to do that in this space, in this field, it's going to be very hard for you to show up and do that for other people. You know what I mean?
I think it was like you were reading my mind because it's like I also think when we're talking about language and like how marginalized identities talked amongst each other. Like,
Hmm.
I think when that's not when that's not understood, right? There's harm that can happen. Now you're creating safety plans for something that you did not need to create a safety plan for because this is how we talk amongst each other. This is how we commune amongst each other. But because you don't haven't dived into communion for marginalized
Wait,
identity.
or I'll actually remember what the phrase was.
Uh,
The girl said that she was finna like she was finna blow up the bathroom when she got home. It's something like that. She was like, "I'm about to blow this up," and her clinician interpreted that as her like being violent. When it's like, "No, girl, I'm about to like light this bitch up. Like I'm about to use the bathroom."
I'm about to
Like it was that. Like
do 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 do.
right. Like I'm sorry to interrupt it. I just had to remember that. Please go 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 go.
Well, no, and I think it's also it's very and because it could be very isolating also, like, just, like, in the classroom and in these spaces too, because people don't we're not talking about AAVE. We're not talking about African American vernacular. We're not having conversations on this because it's also, like, I also think once again, even when you were talking about, am I unprofessional or are you saying like like black culture as a whole? Because it's like
Right.
do rags and how we talk and how we braid our hair and how we wear when we're talking about even the Crown Act and how like even things
Hmm.
we're still policing hair and saying like that we have to like show up as these robots, right? And I think also when we're talking about I think, like, it's interesting. I always joke that some of these people in my, like, program wanted to be psychiatrists. You didn't wanna be a therapist and sit and hold
Right.
space with people and understand culture and humanity
I
because
did.
if you did a lot of these things, you would be able to before you're quickly throwing a diagnosis or before you're quickly sending somebody to the hospital, you would be able to, like, get to know this person and then acknowledge and understand, "Oh, this is" by me getting to know my client, I know my client is not harming themselves when I hear them saying they're gonna blow up the bathroom because we've had those conversations, hopefully,
Right.
at length, right? And I think that there's this like I think that we have become cops in these spaces. Like I think like that
Hmm.
reality is like there are I think people are still trying to like deem who's dangerous and who's not, basically. Like I think in these fields. And it's like these are human beings, just like you are also a human being as well. And I think that like this aspect I heard there was a weird thing in our program where people are talking about like I don't know if I'm going to like pass the tissue box to a client and like how like professional that is. I'm not going to like hug a
Yes.
client
Oh my God.
and all of these different things. I'm like, what are we like I was like, what do you think that this role is? Like I was like, I just don't understand passing tissue boxes that now that's
That
going
does
to be
not stop in grad school. That do you know that's a widely like debated thing? Like, should I drink water in session? Is another one. It's like, girl, you're a human. Drink your water. Like, what are we talking about? Like here, so ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Okay. let's close this segment out, child, because we could go on all day. I want to hear before we close out. Do you have any advice for any disruptors out there? Any last words for them?
The voice in your head may tell you that you feel crazy in a world where people aren't speaking up as often as you would like. Keep speaking up even if your voice shakes. Keep speaking up even if it trembles.
Whoa, that was fire. Okay, you ate that. Keep speaking up even if your voice trembles. That's good. That's good. That's really good. I
Thank
don't
you.
even have anything to add. I couldn't have said that any better. Like, oh my goodness. That's good. That's some good shit. All right. So we done that. You ate that. So we're gonna move on to our next segment, which is Ask Dr. Durag and Friends. And thankfully we have Donyae here. And this is the perfect question for Donyae, if you ask me, which is why I picked it out. It is, how can mental health providers play a role in the transformative justice process? And if anybody's gonna answer this, it's gonna be me and Donyae. Okay. Do you wanna go
I
first?
mean, is this saying that I think some people need to find a different career field? Is that too
No,
and
that
can I be specific when I say that? I think a
you
lot of
said that
people
nicer than I would.
I think a lot of people went into this field saying that, like, my friends tell me I'm a good listener. Like, I just really think that I should, like, be a therapist now and hold space for people's deepest and darkest truths and
Yeah.
what they've experienced. And I think that, like,
Mind you, your friends are
there
lying to you.
and you can be a babysitter. Like, nannies still exist. Like, they're still hiring nannies nationwide. There's many jobs for people to have, recess monitor. There's different things that if people really wanna get into like that, you can. But I think a lot of people don't want to be therapists. And I think you have to sit down and ask yourself what this is going to, and it'll change your whole entire life. That's my thing. I think like when you
Yeah,
start examining systems, I think like what happened for me, like, I mean, like when I started my internship, I broke up with the person that I was dating because I knew that that was going to hold me back from being a clinician because of the relationship that I was in. Like, with no contact with my family, like, there was different things that I recognized weren't healthy anymore with that, and I think what's happening when you're doing all this research and you're reading on psychoeducation, you start like putting that magnifying glass on your own habits and how you're showing up in this world and
yeah,
how you're standing up for
have
justice.
to.
And I think that you have to be willing to put that magnifying glass on your life. And I think the clinicians that are doing the work and doing the really nitty gritty work are also doing that work outside of their relationship with their clients. They're shifting their own life. And I think that
Yeah,
the balance has to be I don't think you should be this person that, like, is setting unrealistic goals for yourself either. Be particular to your own healing journey. Know that harm reduction is what I always say is, like, any progress is progress when you're doing the healing work on yourself, and so, I think that for me, it was like I remember the biggest thing was, like, I thought thinking that I needed to choose sobriety in my during my internship year because I wanted to, like, I'm walking through, I'm working with trauma survivors. I wanted to understand my own relationship to alcoholism and whatnot. And I recognized that wasn't indicative to my own healing journey. I was trying to be like a perfect clinician and like cut all of these things out of my life because
mm,
how can I be a better clinician if I'm out like in these streets? And I also understood that like putting a realistic mirror into my own healing journey will allow me to like know that the progress that I'm making too is progress. I did 6 months of sobriety and I went back to drinking. And I think because I went back was related to me also recognizing that the 6 months gave me the time to understand how to shift my relationship with alcohol. That does not mean I think like complete sobriety works for people, complete abstinence works for people. And then I also just think that like harm reduction is also a solution for people. So
yeah,
hopefully that answered your question. I think that like a lot of
yeah.
people
I
should
think our answers are probably gonna kind of like build on one another because I think you're speaking to something that I think is really essential, right? The question is, how can mental health providers play a role in the transformative justice process? And it's like acknowledging that you're a human being. I think like living life as a human being understanding like you are a person, the people you're working with, they're people, like they're
Yeah,
people
yeah.
first. Having a people's first approach is going to help, but also like everything we talked about before this about being a disruptor, disrupting systems, not being afraid to speak up, not being afraid to challenge like your supervisor when you see something wrong, not being afraid to. Okay, how am I say this without getting in legal trouble? Hold on. Not being afraid
You're finding it.
because one thing about me, when it comes to a note, you're not gonna know that, like, you're not gonna know any real information, like, unless the client wants that information to be shared. Like, doing things protectively to protect your clients. Like, I
And
had a video that I made not too long ago where it was like a client tells me that her friends jumped her ex, and I was like, client participated in community building exercise and exerted like interpersonal conflict resolution skills. Like, that's you
yes.
use the jargon. If you're gonna use your powers, use it for good. And yeah, you actually mentioned something too, like whereas I think a lot of people come into this field like really wanting to be in this field. I will say me, not to say I'm different, but I am different. I was a community organizer. I went to school to get my master's in social work because I wanted to be a better community organizer. I just
Yes.
happened to fall on this path of being a therapist. And I actually really love the work for what it is, but I've always wanted to do more macro work. And with that in mind, if you are a clinician, the only way that you can help as far as transformative justice is really having your ears to the street, like paying attention to what's happening in the world, like having a cultural lens, learning, being a lifelong student, caring about community outside of just like this field of work. This field of work is not the end all be all, and the only way we can really create and really make effective change is by actually understanding the systems that we exist within and contributing to it outside of seeing our clients on a daily basis. You should be involved. I know life is life. Life is hard. It's a lot going on. But the only way we can really do that is by being tapped in and involved in our communities outside of just seeing clients. You should be doing other stuff too. And it's hard. Don't get me wrong, but like, do you want to be a part of change or not? That's the community organizer in me speaking, though. So I don't know. To each his.
Yes. Knowledge is power. I love the lifelong learner. I think people need to read books and not TikTok
Yes.
articles and headlines
Period.
and clickbait, and I think we need to bring back critical thinking. I
Yes.
think that, like, there's such a anti I think, like, it's such a thing of I think it's obvious now that we're such an anti-intellectual society where people don't want to not only question, I think we've talked about that in this conversation, but they also just don't I think people are afraid to seek knowledge because they're afraid of the bubbles that will be popped when they do
Yes.
this. Um,
Exactly. And some of y'all should quit. Just throwing that in there too. Some of you should quit. Some of you should not be clinicians. My God, quit.
yes, and I just think it'll be a better place. I also just think that, like, people also recognize that where we're at in a society with anti-intellectualism and, like, harmful clinicians, because I do think that that's also why, like, books are being banned. So please go know that transformative justice, go read those banned books immediately.
Yes.
Did you hear child, did you hear about the bum that's the VP that's doing, like, the cosplay titles of Bell Hooks's books?
Yes. Oh my God, that's so weird. I'm happy you brought that up. So, J.D. Vance, aka Couchfucker, has been like his first book. Now, people peeped it the first time too. Like he like made the title of his first book. I think it's Hillbilly. Is it Elegy? Hold on, let me look it up. Let me look it up because I like the. If you
Also,
know what I'm
hillbilly in the
talking about.
title is just always I was like, "Why what would draw folks to read a book that begins with hillbilly?"
It's. Am I allowed to say that J.D. Vance needs to die?
Who said that? I
It's
said,
a question to the audience. I'm just asking because I'm not I'm not saying it, but I'm asking
"Listen,"
if it's okay for me to
and
yes.
you're asking the very important questions.
Oh, so the first one was Communion. He named his first book Communion, and that's a Bell Hooks book title. And then the
Mhm,
second one was because Bell Hooks made a book called Appalachian Elegy, and his was Hillbilly Elegy. Like
mhm,
he
mhm.
is, but you know, like these people don't be having an original bone in their body.
No,
There's a
no.
sickness there. There's a
No.
sickness.
And that's what and we know this too, that's why, like, I feel like the reboots and I think people also have to, like, even I don't wanna get on that tangent, but the no original ideas is people are benefiting off of that as well, and, like, knowing that, like, there are so
Get
many
on a tangent. Get on it.
like, and there's so like, it's like when I and w books, I mean, like, your libraries exist, folks, like, they're like, it's a free resource, I love that you talk about that all the time. There are people and authors and ideas that you have probably never heard about, and so it's
Yes.
like, go explore that because I think, like, it's out there to our disposal for that reason. And I think that, like, they don't want us to find new people or new ideas or new things, and you can change your mind. Transformative justice is realizing you can change your mind. The way that we
Yes.
change our mind is by reading a damn book.
Read a fuck I got it. What's that Little John song? Readabo. Okay. Please, y'all, read a goddamn book. If you Oh my god, like, with that being said, just tacking on what you're saying a little bit, if you're a clinician and you have not read a book, like, in the last, like at least, like, the last couple months, I'm looking at you funny. You should be an avid reader. Like, I read my mental health books, which are behind me in my cabinet. Like, you should be reading books. Like, that is how you, like, sharpen yourself as a clinician and how you make sure that your brain isn't being lost to the hell that is AI and like
Yes.
social media brain rot. Like you need to actively be learning, be a lifelong student because as you know, I'm sure you don't learn how to be a therapist really inside of the schoolhouse. That is not what that is for. That is to legitimize you as a clinician, but you need to actually be learning like in the field. Like, yeah, what the hell? Like you should be learning.
I would argue that at least I'll speak from from my statements. My program did very little to make me a strong clinician.
You
Think
are
it was
speaking
the
for
book.
me too.
It was the books I was reading, it was the networking I was doing outside of this, it was the conversations like these. That was where the real work happened. If I had relied on my program to be a therapist, maybe I may not be still in this in this field.
Goodness gracious. Okay, that was good. We didn't take that answer like that question all around the world, but I think we got it done. So the next segment, y'all, is one of my favorite segments. I say this all the time, by the way. I'm like, y'all, this is my favorite segment, and it's like every single segment, but I don't care. I like them
Because the whole
all.
podcast eats. Every section is a lit section.
Well, thank you, dog. Yay. You gotta really be a friend to the show. I want you back on here at some point. But the next section is segment, sorry, is What's Your Anthem? And this is
Intentional.
where we share a song or a piece of media that is keeping you sane in this chaos that is existing in this globe today because Lord knows there's a lot going on. So we have to like practice joy. And this is one of the ways that I want to highlight that. So I want to know what's your anthem, either a song, a movie, a show, anything that's keeping you like grounded or sane right now.
Okay, listen, I'm a smorgasbord. You know I'm an artist, so this is so hard for me. So I'm gonna do like a gumbo. Like I'm gonna make a
Okay.
gumbo of different things that are helping me right now. And the first ingredient in this gumbo is gonna go to Jill Scott's album. The entire
Okay.
project. The whole entire
Yeah,
project.
I gotta get into it.
It's been on repeat. Off the back of my ancestors, that one is in affirmation for me. So Jill Scott's going in the gumbo. I gotta do a shameless plug. It's always gonna be Donyae Asante's music
Period.
streamed on all services because I just think
Get
that
into
listening
it.
and you know what's nice about an artist that never deletes his work? Because I have stuff still on SoundCloud if people want to search back then when I was in my early days. The SoundCloud people stand up. SoundCloud GarageBand people stand up. But I think it's nice. I think what for me is like an audio journal, what I say with my singing songwriting. It's like I get to kind of see how I just came into myself. I think it's less about the ego trip of it all of being an artist and more so just like having a documentation so that when I leave this world, people know what I wanted to say. And art can we can always have that. And Fairly Odd Parents, cartoons. You had said something on your page about Avatar, and I was like, no one's doing it like you, Shaheen. No one's saying these things. But cartoons, because I think there's a thing with animation where people like are able to go there because it's animation. Like I was finding some gems in Fairly Odd Parents that I didn't hear the first time. They had an episode. where they were like, the clowns, there's clowns in society, like some are in Congress. And I said, radical for the odd parents, we love to see that. So watch your cartoons, watch your favorite childhood cartoon.
I'm gonna revisit that just because you said that. I love a good
I love a cartoon and I love Avatar. When you said Avatar, I said I was actually, that's how I got through my first half of my internship year, was watching Avatar. So
thank you. Look, I just followed you on Spotify because I'm gonna get into your music in a little bit. Like you multifaceted, multi-hyphenated, okay, multi-titled. You gotta give it up for the girls. Okay. I love when like somebody is multi-hyphenated. Like live for an artiste.
I'm gonna pass that flower back to you. I'm gonna pass that bouquet that you just gave because
But
you out here designing rugs. You're out here painting. You're like,
this ain't about me though. We're giving you flowers right now. We're gonna let you receive them. Receive them. This don't gotta be an exchange, but I'm gonna get into your music, and you're
thank you,
already
love.
eating with the imagery. But as far as my anthem for this week, I discovered a new artist. Not like I'm saying that like I have the authority to discover people, but I found a new artist. Her name is Slum Princess, and she has this song called Venom, and that song is just like a real powerful testament to like what anger like how I envision anger, because it's at some point in the song she even says like she's gonna crash out. She doesn't want anybody in her phone unless they willing to kill for her, and she knows it's toxic and she lives for it. She talks about how there's trauma in the bloodline, so she's gonna crash out. Like it's just so good. Like
Oh,
so,
that's
Slum Prince
it's going on the playlist immediately. What's the name of this song?
Venom
I'm
is so good, like, Venom by
period.
Slum Princess, and she's a definitely a smaller artist, but, like, I'm not even I hate to say smaller, like, not smaller, she's a definitely an independent artist
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
on
yeah.
the beginning of her journey, but I see really big things for her because it's a good like, you cannot be that good and not go somewhere, like, that's good, but Venom by Slum Princess is mine for this week.
Period.
Yeah, that brings me to our last segment. Okay, this has been so fun. Our
Highlight
last
of my vacation. Like
this
I
is this
said, we gotta do the bad bitch link up again.
I'm gonna need you back on here at some point. But our
Yes.
last segment is the toolkit, and this is where we share one thing in our health toolkit that keeps us going, that keeps us grounded, navigating again the chaos of living in this hellscape. So, what's something in your toolkit that you can offer up to the collective for us to all like think of?
Yeah, I feel like I I read this really good book over because I think we're talking about reading, and I think that just like books are just they're free,
Mhm.
like they're out here at our local libraries. Children of Blood and Bone was such a really cool.
I have that up there too. Like I love the whole series.
It's so good, and I think, like, reading things now where it's, like, how people whether it's you wanna dive into your fantasy bag or, like, read, like, actual, like, what's on my hold right now at the library is Burning the Master's House Down, like, that one
Mm,
too, but it's just there's so many books out here that are talking about revolution, and I think, like, we hear, "The revolution is here, the revolution is starting," but, like, I think, like, understanding what people have done in the past, and I think fantasy novels kind of, like, really do explore this idea of revolting in such a cool way where it's, like, I think it's more digestible, like, than some people that may not wanna dive into something like a My Grandmother's Hands right away. But if you
yeah.
want something that's gonna keep you, quote, unquote, "entertained," they're making it into a series. I can't wait to see how that
Yes.
develops.
I saw the I saw that they released a trailer, I think, or a teaser for it, like just
Okay.
yesterday.
Oh, this week! Timely! Look
Okay,
at that.
so now we can get I hope you know you and I are gonna have to talk about this because I'm a huge like YA fiction like fan, like and I
Yeah.
love those books. Like I really yeah. I I still have to read the last one, but I'm already sold. We gotta talk about that. Like my
And start
goodness.
your book I think a part of that and, like, a l flash resource, whether it's, like, reading that book, start a book club with your homies. I think that, like, I did that with and I think that that's been such a good resource for me is, like, I think reading by yourself can be so intimidating. It's a lot to do. We have to feed ourselves every day, and then now we gotta read every day. I know it's a lot, but reading amongst community is so much fun. I think, like, I did a book club with homies last year, and I think that that's been a great
Listen,
3rd
I've
space for
been
me.
I keep saying I've been supposed to have had a book club. Like, life just has gotten super busy. I'm moving
Mhm.
and settling in, but I would love to start a book club. Like, that's on my list of things to do, but, like, yeah, I think it that's great advice. If you're listening to this, start a goddamn book club. Like, that's also a part of the toolkit. Thank you, Donye. I'm gonna actually build off of you and give like a book that I've been reading called Sky
Awesome.
Full of Elephants, which is also a fantasy novel. So Sky Full of Elephants is about this world, right? Where
Mhm.
one day, just out of nowhere, every white person in the United States woke up and walked into the nearest body of water and drowned themselves. So, this is a world that is post white people existing because all white people have killed themselves. And it's about the main character is this guy who is rebuilding his life. He was in jail, he got out of jail, and he teaches at Howard because Howard is still functioning. There's a king of Alabama. Like, it's so much going on in the book. He has a daughter who he found out about after getting out, who's like biracial. So I'm giving away a lot, but like all of this to say that book is really good if you want to talk about or explore like dynamics about race, but you don't want to talk about it in a way that's just like plain. That is a good way to even explore that. Like Sky Full of Elephants. I'm not finished, but I'm almost finished. It's really good. It's a really, 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 really good book so far. And yeah, just like read, y'all. Read.
Please.
Oh my goodness. Don't just look at videos all day. Read a book, please, physical. Get a copy and just crack it open, you know? It could be
Heavy on get
fun.
a copy. Cause audio maybe the audiobooks are not really maybe y'all not listening, so maybe we just need to put them in the hand.
Audiobooks are cool too, though. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
shaming
No
anybody.
shame, no
If
shame, no.
you right, like both. Yeah, try to open a book and listen to the audio. Like do both at the same time. It helps. But
Yes.
Donye, oh my goodness, do you have any closing words? Tell the people where they can find you. And I just want to thank you for coming. But like closing words, where can people find you?
Closing words, because I did this before we started, but I love to give people flowers live and about this person is modeling how we need to be better human beings, okay?
Oh,
Not just like clinicians, but better humans. Like, it's like, I think that we need in a world where people are still going up for role models that, like, y'all need to let go, like, these people have let us down. Here are people and elders and adults and not elder, I'm not gonna age us. We
you
are
can call
young,
me an elder. I'm fine with that at this point.
but here's mentorship and other things. Like, it's like, there are when y'all are talking about, like, who to find and whatnot, these people exist that are better leaders than some people that are people are following. So that's my closing words. Thank you. Thank you for giving the
Donye, thank
space
you. I received that.
and keep doing it. I think that, like, you are just so needed, and so those are my closing words. It's been an honor being in space with you today. Full circle moment for me for sure. Um, you can follow me anywhere. I'm D Asante Shy on Instagram. And I am Donyae Asante on streaming services.
Spell it out for the people.
Listen, it's DASANTECHI on IG. And it's Donyae Asante, Donyae Asante, which is my name. It's not a alter ego. That is my name because the parents ate down on the birth certificate. Donyae Asante. Um, and yeah, so much creative endeavors and things on the way. So you can follow me on those platforms to see what's on the way.
Listen, before we go, I feel the exact same way about you. You are needed, and I'm so thankful that we are connected. Like this is a budding friendship, everybody. Y'all don't know that yet. But thank you so much for coming, collective. If you have any questions for Ask Dr. Durag, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Send a DM, send an email. We want to hear from y'all, so please feel free to send in your questions. Don't forget to leave a review. That is all for today, y'all. Over, and out. And remember, you're doing better than you think or know.